All right, all. Welcome to Stream Gamers. This is Raymond. Once again, we're continuing our series on the milk run. We are fixed to part. Get my screen up here. So we're fixed to depart from PACV and on our way to PAYA. 737, 700 is the aircraft that we're going to be flying. And our focus is on this flight is going to be more about more automation. We're going to use the VNAV where the previous video we didn't, and I'll try to remember to link in the description the first video of the series. This will be video number 2. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and watch that one. But our purpose and our focus is more automation, so we'll be using LNAV, VNAV for the entirety of the flight. We will do a ILS approach, runway 11. So that'll be our goal. You can see the weather is a little adverse, so we'll look at that as we get closer, and that may make us do something a little different. But we'll talk about it when we get there. And then, of course, the next thing is that we want to use SimBrief and automate that process as well. So we're going to go through the start procedure. I'm not going to explain a lot about what I'm doing. I do have a video about that. So if you're unsure what I'm doing here, please go watch the first video in the series. That's going to explain all of this to you that I'm doing. I'll go over some general discussions about that just to kind of give you a feel for where we are in the process. So right now we're starting the APU. Power comes on, this kind of goes up, and so on and so forth. And eventually we'll have power on the APU, and we'll be importing the flight plan in, and I'll talk more in detail about that here in a moment. All right. Once we get APU up, we'll begin more of the discussion. We know we got APU up when this light goes blue over here. And I will also, there's the APU is up. So I'll also kind of fast track the starting of the engines as well, because in the previous video we did that. Right. So why don't we have our something in, right? We're missing something. Well, here we go. We got APU up. We got our bleed is on. Don't do any of that. Speed and trim has failed. There we go. Just took a second, I guess. So all of that's lit up. We'll go up here and get busy with getting our IRS alignment started. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start talking about SimBrief a little bit, just briefly. I don't want to spend too much time on SimBrief, but so SimBrief is a utility that you can use kind of free at charge. There's no cost to it. It works pretty good. I will say that if you enhance it with Navigraphic, it brings a bit more of an experience. But anyways, this is SimBrief. Now, along with SimBrief, we also can use, or we also need to use the downloader software. So bring that up. I'll bring that over here, and I will just quickly adjust this for that purpose. All right. So now, shut that off, turn this on. So this is the downloader. I won't spend a lot of time about this, but this is a program you need to download off of SimBrief's website. After you generate the flight plan, And once you have the flight plan generated, which is this right here, once you have it generated and you have it here, you then want to let me get back up one screen. So you would be at this point where you've got it all configured and set up, picked your aircraft, blah, blah, blah. You then want to hit the generate button. And when you hit the generate button, it does that. It's generating the flight plan. So now, when you come in here, you'll see this is the flight plan that I created. 737, the ASA 1212, and it's coming from PACV going to PAYA. We hit export, and then it'll export that into the appropriate directory. In this case, because we're using the PMDG, it will export it. This is my default location for it. You can pause the video and look at that. But also, if I want to export that flight plan and use it in other aircraft that are dissimilar to the process for PMDGs. So I've already done that. I've already exported that out. So we're going to get rid of that screen. And now we're going to put that back in and save that. Okay. So we'll get rid of that. So that's how we get the flight plan out of SimBrief and get it into the aircraft and get the aircraft configured so that we can start using that flight plan. Right. So now what we want to do is we want to go into the aircraft and we're going to come down here and we're going to looking at the fuel block. It says we need 11,453 is it pounds? Yes, it is pounds. Presumed it was. Whoops, I clicked on the wrong one. So we're going to go here, we're going to go fuel, and we're going to go 11,453. Now we're going to push that into there. So that got our fuel. One final thing that we're going to do, or one quick thing, we're going to go into setup, aircraft, equipment, page 14. I discussed this on the previous video. I want to have a single type of cabin layout, not two classes, both first and economy. I want to have single class. So that's how we change that. Okay, so the next function is we want to start thinking about payload. So payload is here. This flight plan says we have 118 passengers, so we'll put 118 into the passenger list. There we go. It says that we have a total of 6,490 pounds of cargo. So I'm going to go 3,490 pounds in the front, and I'm going to go 3,000 pounds in the back. And I'm getting this in, whoops, 3,490 goes to the front, and 3,000 goes to the rear or the aft. So that part is now done. It's going to provide us all of the necessary information that we need here, but we're going to use SimBrief and the import process to collect this data. So the previous flight, I used this to give me my zero field weight, my takeoff center of gravity, and so forth and so on. But we don't need that here. So what we're going to do now is back out. We're going to come in here and we're going to no. Sorry, I take that back. We're going to come in here. We're going to set the park brake. And I'm going to remove the chocks. And now we are going to go here and we're going to set the IRS position. So we click on next, we pick on one of these, put it into the scratch pad, we back up and we populate that. The message that you were seeing in there, don't worry about that as much. It's telling us it wants us to do the alignment, which we will. Now, our reference airport, which is our takeoff airport, that is PA, I believe it was CV. So I put this in here, and then we go to the route. Here is where we're going to start pulling in that data. We could just put the origin and destination in as we did in the other video, but this one we're going to use this plus the destination airport, which is PAYA, and it needs to be configured like this. And assuming you've done the downloader and you've done it correctly, when you put it into the company route, you get this. You notice it put the origin in, it put the destination in, and then we activate that and execute that, and we're done. We can save it, your choice, but you don't have to. Now, we are going to take off on 09. That'll be our runway. Presumably, that's going to be our runway. We'll check that in a bit. Here's the page that we got in a previous video. I had to enter this information in manually, but because we have it set through the downloader and through SimBrief, we can hit request. And request is going to take a minute or two, kind of giving us either the illusion, or maybe it does truly take this long, but it's collecting the data from, for lack of a better term, it's collecting the data from that little text document that's been put into a given place. Once it gets it all, then we get the load button, and then you see all of this data gets loaded in. This does not get loaded in. Now you can gather that data through the SimBrief, or I have a program called SimBrief Panel. I click on Fetch, and this program is linked to SimBrief as well. Then I click on the weather, and there is my average wind direction and speed. So 238.26, and that's what it wants there. 238.26. Our flight altitude, forgot to hit the execute here after that. Our flight altitude is 25,000, so let's come up here and let's just set that up quickly. Sorry, our cruise altitude is the more proper phrase, I guess. Okay, so now, yeah, so now what do we do? Okay, yeah, let's quickly finish this off here. All right, so we will click on this here. I never change this in. I never change this information. I'm sure there's something there to be done, but I don't. Before I go here, I always forget this. I need to go to the departure and arrival. Departure is 09. Arrival is sorry. I mean, our departure is that, and our so we're doing a direct departure. Hang on now. I gotta go back here, look at this, and make sure that this does make sense. So it wants us to depart on 27. Okay, so let's take that away. Let's erase that. Let's go 27 departure. And it wants us to do a direct departure on 27. Execute that. Oops. Here and here. And now it wants us to arrive on Yak 29. So 29 is not an ILS, so we won't be using the ILS. We'll be using a runway 29 Yak. Execute. We're going to go to our legs page. We're just going to go through here as we've done before and just get rid of these erroneous entries. Oops. How do I get rid of that one if I can't get to the next? So we go here, back, and over top. On. Go back here, and we're going to go here, here, execute, and we're done. There we go, done. Okay, so that's our first waypoint right there. And if I were to go here, go here, no, wrong one, here, no, I'll get it yet, here. So if you blow this up, you can actually see that's where we're going from here to this forat and then so forth. Okay, so that covers that. You can see our departure there, right? We're going to come here and then just do a big loop around and start heading back up. So the next thing I want to do is I want to just do a quick step through. I always like to do a quick step through just to make sure there's no erroneous things that don't make sense to me. And that's the turnaround to come back in. Should be good. Okay. Right. Put that back here. Put that back there. We'll click our flight directors on so we don't forget. So our next steps here are now that our configuration is all set up. As I said before, this flight we are going to use VNAV and LNAV in combination. We didn't finish this. I forgot we didn't finish this. I need to come back here, put my flaps in as 5, my center of gravity, and those are my V speeds. Now, recently I've been talking about 10 knots over this speed, but basically the reality is that we're going to get out to around 200 knots or so. So I get it. You're supposed to set this and set your speed configuration for 142. Of course, that would be full flapped and still and everything else. So you can fly at that, but I'm gonna in this case I'm gonna forego that step. Instead of setting it at 142, I'm going to set it at around 200 because that's where I plan to start. Yeah, summer's in that area. We want to be mindful that we're not going above 250 knots below 10,000. That's quite important. Our runway heading for our departure, as we said, was 27. So I'm going to quickly collect that data here. Here, 27. So that's 275 is our runway heading. So we'll just dial this up to 275. Again, I always like to have my runway heading put in here as I'm leaving. So if I do hit autopilot, it can just continue out at runway heading. But you see the flight plan here. It's telling us that we're going to depart here, and we're going to make a pretty abrupt 180-degree turnaround. So that's all pre-configured. It's all ready to go. A good time for those that want to. And again, there's no pressure, but if you're interested in this type of content and want me to produce more of this type of content, I would greatly appreciate a comment to that effect. As well as like and subscribe. I did some looking and I realized that the vast majority of the people that watch my content aren't subscribed. And so your subscription does nothing else for me other than it kind of tells me that I'm on the right track with creating the right kind of content that you all would like to have. And that, because that is important to me. Algorithms are not important to me. Monetization is not important to me. I don't care about any of that. But it is important that I'm on the right track of producing the right type of content that is interesting to me. And if I can change that in some way, I would greatly like to hear about that. All right. So we're here. We'll push the throttle up just a bit. We'll get the aircraft rolling. We're rolling now. Give it a little bit more. We've got our throttle set at that, 90% or so, thereabouts. It's a little high. V0 is set. I like to get a little quicker.
V1, rotate.
Rotate is called for. I'm going for 140. 140, I'm rotating.
Positive rate of climb.
We got a positive rate of climb, which means our gear is coming up shortly. There's a big hill there, so we're going to be turning. You can see the magenta line tells us we should be turning, so we're going to be doing that. Still maintaining, a good speed. Keep in mind what we're doing right now is all manual, so managing the speed with manual thrust, managing the direction of the aircraft in a manual situation. My goal here is that once I get, kind of on course going the direction that we should be going in, I will then at that point enable LNAV and VNAV and autopilot
Bank
and all this
angle.
good stuff. Oop, too sharp on the bank angle. Let's break that throttle back down just a bit. Too fast. We're not too fast, but I could bring up flaps. So this is pretty adverse weather conditions. So I am flying not VOR, and really I'm presuming in this case I probably really should have autopilot on. So I think that's what I'll attempt to do here. We'll let the autopilot control it all now. And notice that we're now on VNAV and LNAV, which means the aircraft is now going to control the throttle. It's going to control the direction of the aircraft and tell it to follow that magenta line. And that pretty much concludes this part of it. This part now is kind of in the books. It's going to climb, and it's going to continue to climb and do so up to 25,000 feet. And our ceiling is, let's just quickly look at our ceiling. So our ceiling is overcast at 4,500 feet, broken clouds at 3,500 feet. Winds were calm, and our temperature was 7 degrees Celsius or 45 degrees Fahrenheit. So we should start seeing fairly shortly a break through the clouds. It doesn't seem very accurate to me. Something I didn't do, and I should have, is I should have put on the real time. But I can see it getting lighter and lighter as we go. And that's telling me that we're getting closer and closer to breaking through the clouds. So there we are, through the clouds and clear skies. I really should be more mindful of this stuff, but I'm not. Right. So we're through the clouds. We're on the right path. I won't spend a lot of time talking about any of the other stuff. I did that in a previous video. But I am going to start talking about, once we get closer to top of descent, I'll pick you guys up again, and we'll start talking about what type of descent is. All right, we're here again. Start talking about our top of descent. We are 27 nautical miles to top of descent. Our approach is our initial altitude is 2,500 feet. I'll just put up my Navigas chart here so you can see that. So we're 2,500 feet is where we want to be, and then we'll work our way down to our final of 1,600 feet. So, but because we're using VNAV, the aircraft is going to manage its top of descent all the way down to that 1,600 foot altitude. So what we'll do is we will set here our initial of 2,500. this off again. So we'll set our initial 2500 here for our altitude. And what should happen is as we cross top of descent, because we have VNAV enabled, come on, there we go. Because we have VNAV enabled, as we cross top of descent, just before that, the throttles are going to get pulled back, and the aircraft is going to slow itself down, and it's going to hold the prescribed altitude and speed for that given leg. So when we look at the legs, we're coming on to fakes right now, and it's calling for 0.626 Mach at 25,000 feet. The next waypoint, which is back here, right here, it's calling for 259 knots at 15,000 feet, or 15.4. And I see that's fluctuating, but nevertheless, and you'll see that it just continues to step itself down until we get to the runway. Our final at Yak is 146 knots. Our altitude is 690 feet. At which point we'll probably, even before that, take control of the aircraft. Remember, our ceiling is 3,500 feet. 35 or 3,300 feet. I should check that one more time. Overcast is now calling. It's calling now overcast at 7 knots. Winds at 100 at 2,500 feet. So when we get to that 2,500 feet, we're probably going to be in some overcast still. So instead of that, I'm going to change this to, say, 2,300 feet. I want to be well out of the clouds. Now, there is mist. Ceiling is 2,500, as I said. We are 8 degrees, so we will have to put on windscreen, wing de-icing and engine de-icing, because it's going to be quite cold, and we're going to start getting some buildup of ice, and I certainly don't want that. We're getting closer and closer to our top of descent. We are now 4.3 nautical miles from top of descent. Excuse me, you can see it there. Soon you're going to see the engines pull back. That's my guess. Starting to make our turn. And it should manage everything, as I said, it should manage everything, both holding our correct path as well as our correct altitude for coming in. We're going to see a little indicator over here I'm going to talk about here shortly as we begin our descent, which are just about there. So that's stop and descent passed. You see that little indicator show up, and we're beginning our descent. The throttles are coming back. So we'll briefly talk about this. So this is telling us where we are in relationship to our desired final altitude, and how we're doing in terms of speed, distance, and descent rate. How are we doing? In the middle is perfect. If it were to dip below, that means we're a little too high. If it were to dip above, that means we're a little too low. I believe I've got that right. Yeah, I think I've got that right. But you can see it's kind of holding it well. And the other thing that you can see is now, because of VNAV, the aircraft speed, we're allowed to descend, some 2,000 feet per minute right now, and we're holding speed. And that's because the engines and the aircraft are managing that for us. I don't understand what the difference is if you manually descend at 2,000 feet and pull the throttles back. Why does it keep on going and building speed? I don't know why that is, but for some reason or other, if you use VNAV, it's capable of doing that. Anyways, So here we are on our descent, as we talked about here. We'll start paying attention to our legs page. We're on our way to this waypoint, which is right there. And we're still maintaining a pretty good profile. Our next one will be here where we'll slow down even further. What it's trying to do is it's trying to get to that 250 knot after 10,000 or 21,000 feet. So we still got a little ways to go here yet. A lot of times when you're doing this, you may have, you know, a long approach, right? You know, you got your approach, and that may be 3, 4, 5 different waypoints that you have to transition through, multiple different altitudes that you have to transition through. What it should do is it should not go past 4,600 feet at this waypoint. So, for example, if we get down to 4,600 feet before the waypoint, it will level off and hold 4,600 feet. We'll be past that, and it'll calculate its descent rates / speed to get to this speed and this altitude by here. But again, if it gets a little too low, it will level itself off or reduce its descent rate. Our indicators here is telling us our lineup for the runway as opposed to our correct trajectory. Again, down to the runway, similar to this indicator here. So you can see a runway is here and we're on this side of the runway. It shows us right here. As we get to here, the aircraft will turn in and follow this path, and when that happens, this will slide over toward the center. So one of the thing, or the thing that we talked about in this video is using more automation, and that's what we're doing right now. And this is the primary function of VNAV, controlling the speed and the altitude descent rate based on speed, so that it will get you to your desired altitude relatively close to where you need to be at. You should start to see this diamond here start moving over here shortly, and there it goes. And you're seeing that we're turning, and you're seeing that diamond slide further and further to the center. This means that we're lined up appropriately to the magenta line. In this case, that magenta line is taking us mostly direct to the runway. Now it may be off a degree or two, but it's going to take us mostly direct to the lineup of the runway. And those little markers out there, one of those two little markers is the runway that we're intending to go to. So our throttles are, as I said before, our throttles are probably pulled right back to zero. They are. When we get to around 220 knots or so, I'll put the first stage of flaps out, and then we'll begin staging our flaps for finals, full flaps out. We will make sure that our speed brake is armed. We will also make sure that we have our auto brake set for 2. Now, in a previous flight that I did, where I did this as a manual thing, I did it a little differently. I used a speed brake to manage the speed, to keep me, going relatively slow. You might be seeing this and saying we're coming off of our proper trajectory. Well, we are and we're not. We are in the sense that we're headed for 2,300 feet, but the actual runway is actually, 50 feet off the ground. It is actually 40 feet off the ground. So because we have our selector set at 2,300 feet, and this is an indicator of the ground level, that is making it a little different, a little more difficult. Now I do see here we have a localizer frequency that we could dial in. I'm not going to do that, but you could dial that localizer in. But we won't use it. We'll look at those types of things through our various different parts of the series that we do, and hopefully achieve that. Our runway heading that we want is 295. So I'm going to dial it in here at 295. Now you're going to say, why am I not putting into the course? Because I'm not going to use the course. I could, but I'm not going to, and I'm going to do a manual landing, but I want my runway heading set for 295 should I decide to go heading hold. Just entering the cloud layer here shortly. So you can see the banana here. It's telling us where we will reach 2,500 feet, and which is well above where we need to reach it. So you see our altitude changing here. This altitude changing to 10,000, it's doing that so it can maintain the speed and get to below 250 at 10,000. So you can see that that came up and said, hey, let's get to our desired speed. There we've reached our below 250, and now we will continue to descend. It is at this point, I should have turned them off, because at this point we should have these turned off. I never turn them off because I just don't do that. I'm not very good with that kind of stuff, but neither here nor there. Here we go. We're 9,000 feet. And again, as I said, we're headed for 2,300 feet. And we should actually be heading for 2,500 feet, but I want to be below the cloud ceiling, and the cloud ceiling is at 2,500 feet. So I'm presuming if I get to 2,300 feet, I should then be able to be below the clouds, and I should be able to actually see the runway. So Yak is the VOR, which is right beside the actual runway. Let me just show you that here again, so we can talk about that a little bit. So Yak, which is our final, is right beside the runway right here. That's Yak. Get that off so we can see our screen again. All right. There's our runway right there. I believe this is the airport right here. So at this next waypoint, as soon as we cross that next waypoint, we're going to be heading for Yak at 700 feet at 146 knots. So we need to lose 2,800 feet. I'm going to make the executive decision to dial this in for our 700 feet. Notice we're in the cloud layer right now, so of course visibility is not great. Right, can't see a thing. So we're solely relying on instruments and the flight management computer to kind of make sure that we get to where we want to be at the given speed, given height, and so on and so on. we'll see how well it actually works. So down we come, down we come. Um, I'd like us to get to an altitude where I can visually see what's going on. So I'm going to increase my descent rate just a bit. There we go. There we go. So there it is. This is our desired airport. Our trajectory is not coming in line with the runway. So as we get closer, we're going to start making the decision to kind of veer off and probably do manual flight for the most part. Get this little weird little thing out here that is going to make us go this way and that way, and I'm going to disconnect before that. You can see there's our runway, and I'm kind of a little bit misaligned. That's okay, it's no big deal. I'm going to disengage. There's our runway there. There's our 2500. So right now I'm going to disengage autopilot, disarm auto throttle, and now we're going to be manually flying the aircraft into that runway. We're going to start dropping flaps. We're going to put our gear down. Be a little sketchy landing just to get ourselves lined up. Kind of missed it a little bit, but I still think I'll be okay. Overshot the corner a bit. No big deal. We'll bring her in. We're getting our load up.
500. Sink rate. 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 50. 30. 20. 10.
And that is us landing. Got a little dicey, but not horrible, just a little. You know, no big deal really. So we'll bring our flaps up. We'll reset our spoilers. Go up here and we'll get our APU started. Flaps are up. Auto brake is off. I don't know if there's actually a real place to park this thing at this airport, because I don't know they actually have a place to park a 737. But we're gonna bring it in here anyways, and we'll put it somewhere where we're not sure. We'll put it somewhere. All right, so that is us. That is the end of our flight. We will kill the engines here, and there she goes. And we are now on APU power, so we can kill those pumps. We can shut the anti-ice. Wait a minute, off. I did that already. I forgot to turn that on. I should have turned that on earlier. So that's that. APU bleed should be on, and we should be on isolation. Valve should be on. And off. Taxi is off. Logos off. So that's the end of the flight. Using LNAV and VNAV, as well as using SimBrief. I'll probably do more videos including all of those features again, and I'll touch on them somewhat briefly, but just so that everybody, you know, gets a more detailed view of that in multiple different videos. But that concludes me. That's the end of the video. Again, my name is Raymond, and I'm posting these for Stream Gamers. And you're welcome to like, subscribe, and comment. If there's anything you would like to see that you're not seeing, I'll be very happy to go ahead and do whatever is necessary to get the videos out that you guys are looking to see. I need to get these alarms off. Right, that'll be me. I'm going to shut her down here, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in part 3. Bye-bye now.